Hi, I'm Sam Curry and this is a video for section A. So my calling has been where God has been calling me over a time period, over a number of years, through various different ways. And as I've been sharing my story, I've been describing that as a dripping tap. A tap that's just been drip, drip, dripping for many years. Then it got to the point where the sink was so full that I had to stop, respond, and do something about it. And along that way, as I've started reflecting, I've noticed a pattern as well. A pattern where other people have seen gifts in me and I've just said, whoa, no, I'm not doing that. And examples include local preaching. I was happy and confident to be a worship leader. My minister suggested that I became a local preacher and I said, no, I can't do that. Sometime after, I did respond to that call and I studied to become a local preacher, which I'm still doing now. And I realised that actually I can preach and that I really enjoy it. And these drips of God speaking to me started about 7 years ago. And the first two drips that I really remember that I must have noticed came from two different people on two separate occasions. And both these people are ordained ministers in different places. And they said to me, Sam, have you ever thought about ministry? And they said, well, after this job now, what's your next step? And straight away I said, whoa, no way, I'm not doing that. I just dismissed it and I never really thought about what they said too much. And in reflecting, I kind of wonder, was dismissing that call back then the right thing to do? And I'd argue that yes, it was. 7 years ago, I wasn't the same person that I am now. I've grown as a person, I've grown in faith, I've become equipped through the work I do as a lay employee and through the local preacher training that I've done and that I'm still doing. So back then, I would not be ready to do what I'm doing now, but now I feel like actually exploring ministry and candidating is something that I do feel more equipped to do. So that time on my story is actually really significant and really vital. I can see it that God used that time to shape me. He already knew where I needed to go, but I just needed that bit of time to get ready. And I think at this point it's useful to say that I only became a Christian when I was 19 years old. I didn't grow up going to church. My family aren't Christians and don't go to church. So faith was never part of my upbringing. I got introduced to faith when I joined Girls Brigade as a teenager. I joined Girls Brigade, absolutely loved it, learnt about faith, started going to church when I had to, started engaging with other activities. And then after a number of years, things started to become more real for me. I started to think faith is something that I believed and I wanted to do something about it. And it was when I was 19 at a Youth for Christ event, a big worship event, that I made that commitment to follow Jesus. And obviously since then, there's ups and downs. I've had to grow my faith, but that was the point where I began my journey. And going back to that image of the dripping tap and the sink filling up. So it was autumn 2021 where I could see that the sink had filled up so much that it started to burst over and I had to stop and respond to what God was saying. And that point was when a colleague of mine asked me that question, have you ever thought of ministry? And at that point, the colleague called Janet didn't realise that actually God had already been niggling me and I had been battling with this question with God beforehand. And Janet is somebody who I value, I trust, who I worked closely with, so she can see what I'm good at. She can see where I struggle as well. So I really trust her judgment. So when Janet asked me the question, I thought, oh, really, I need to do something about this. I remember when she actually asked me, it felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. And when I then got into conversation with Janet, Janet said she asked me because God had prompted her. I thought it was just that she had seen the way I worked, but it wasn't actually. Her question to me was prompted by God. So from that point of responding to the full sync and what Janet said, I attended the Explore Ministry session over Zoom. And from that session, everything really clicked into place. I felt so scared going to this session. I still felt like, okay, I think this is what God's saying, but I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I can do it. But things at that session clicked in place. The idea of being set apart, the comment about the head and the heart and the mind coming together, that really linked with how I was feeling. So I left that session, yes, still scared, but confident that I knew this is what God wanted me to do. And I was scared, I was reluctant, but my prayers shifted from, God, is this what you want me to do? To, okay, God, I hear you, I notice you. When do you want me to respond? And I've written here that I was a bit like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door. You know, I kind of knew this is where I should go, but it was still that resistance and that bit fear. So then from there, the prayers changed, some time passed, and it was at the start of this year in 2023 that my call really intensified. I was getting so many nudges from God. I couldn't stop thinking about this call to ministry. And the pressure had even built up so fast that I couldn't sleep anymore without thinking about this. It just got too much. And at this point, I hadn't told my superintendent about my thinking and my call. So I thought, actually, I really need to do this. I need to speak to Paul, who's the superintendent. So one day in the car, I was driving, I was praying, and I said, okay, God, when I get home, I'll email Paul, I'll tell him about my thoughts for candidating for ministry and arrange a time to meet up and chat. Then I thought, actually, I can't do that. I haven't got Paul's email address. I said, I'll do it next week. No worries, no rush. But when I got home and logged onto my emails, I had an email from the local preacher's secretary, the new plan, and what was on the top, Paul's email address. So I thought, okay, God, I'm listening. I'm going to contact Paul. And so I did. And once I had done that, actually, that pressure just lifted off me and I felt so much better. And once I met with Paul, it was so helpful, so useful. The ball kicked in rolling for me to go on the Dove 1 process. And so I did that, and that was so helpful as well. It helped me articulate my calling and affirm my calling. And I think the biggest thing it helped me do as well was affirm that it's presbyteral ministry that I am candidating for. And I have a nice story to describe how God spoke to me about that. I was at a retreat, a lay workers retreat after the Dove 1 retreat, and I was praying to God about helping make the forms of ministry clear. And I was in a garden and I was led to the top of this garden and there was loads of pine cones. And I picked up a pine cone and I looked at it and I thought about what it might mean. And I thought, actually a pine cone, what it does, it holds the seeds, it looks after the seeds, nurtures the seeds, protects the seeds. And then once it's ready, the seeds are released to go off and plant their own tree. And what I thought about that was that really links to presbyteral ministry, that a presbyter would look after their members, they would nurture them, teach them, equip them, and then once they were ready enough, they would be released to do mission elsewhere.